Hello and welcome to the Best Games of 1996 edition of Loresworn Order Talks Shop. I am your host, DM Schmeier. With me is my erstwhile partner in crime, TJ.
Yes.
Alrighty,
I am always erstwhile, it seems.
Indeed.
Often described as erstwhile. Yes.
And today we are not being classy as fuck because it's 4 in the afternoon. We do not have a problem.
Yeah.
We do not have a problem.
Well, sometimes I let myself drink after 4 if it's a day off and I've gotten a lot done. I just bump that socially acceptable time back from 5 o'clock to 4 o'clock. But today we're classing it up with some.
We're plugging it away, and I mean I've been classing it up with some cleaner items here as of late.
Actually we had Sarah, one of our longtime followers, wanted us to provide some classy as fuck recommendations for people who do not partake in the alcohol and tobacco.
Yes, indeed. And I mean there's a lot of stuff you can do if you're just the sipping kind. I mean, I personally don't think you can go wrong with a good old Mexican Coke using that cane sugar instead of that high fructose corn syrup. I find it so incredibly refreshing, like a night and day taste difference.
I'll call out actually a local company. If you can get a hold of Be Stiff craft sodas, they're actually made by the same brewery that makes
good recommendation.
Oscar Blues beers. They also make a line of non-alcoholic sodas under the Be Stiff label, and they make really good root beer, really good cream soda.
A good cream soda is hard to find, in my opinion. I typically find it incredibly underwhelming. But when you can find a really good one, the way just your entire tongue blossoms with that vanilla flavor. Like I'm reminded of butterbeer at Harry Potter World at Universal Studios, which I describe as the perfect non-alcoholic beverage. Just in terms of it's very strong. So you can't overdo on it. Like if you have more than like 8 to 12 ounces, you're gonna get sick of the flavor, which I view as a net positive. You know, everything from non-alcoholic, non-tobacco related sugars, candies, snacks to alcohol, you've got to use it in moderation. Like we have even for cigars, we have a 2-week rule around here where we don't smoke more than one every 2 weeks because otherwise then you risk being a smoker, and we're just not interested in that. So you just got to enjoy all this stuff in moderation. And I view like the perfect craft soda as one where you have to enjoy it in small doses. But for that small doses, it's just perfect.
Well, and a lot of the craft sodas, like the price point on them is like you can't buy a 12-pack of this and, drink one a day. Like they're a little bit pricier, but that also helps out because it's more of a treat and you don't feel like, it's going to last longer. If you buy a 6-pack of Be Stiff versus if you get, a 12-pack of A&W from Safeway, and
which will last like 3 days.
Yeah, in an apartment with 4 people where at least 3 of them drink root beer, it's not going to last very long.
So I mean that is my classiest fuck recommendation of the day. I think is find this good stuff, but any of the good stuff you partake in, remember that you're enjoying it in moderation. Yeah, because it makes it better. Yeah, like to me, it's the delay, it's the gratification, man. I'll tell anyone, the best cigar I have ever smoked was the first cigar I smoked when I got back from New Zealand after having not smoked one for a year and a half. I don't even remember what it was, and I'm not convinced it was terribly high quality, but man alive, did absence make the heart grow fonder. Also, living in New Zealand for a year is what made my 21st birthday completely underwhelming, because I went international and could suddenly legally drink. So when I came back, I think on my 21st birthday, I had a scotch and soda, and just was done with it.
My dad actually bought me a 4-pack of Old Rasputin Imperial Stout for my 21st birthday.
Good man.
And I just hung out and drank that. I didn't go out and get wasted on Keystone or anything. So,
although that is a Coloradan rite of passage.
Yes, it is. There. Yeah.
I for one, I did it in the woods the first time I did it. And we all decided that we wanted to do a camping trip, and then we just decided rapidly into the party that we did not want to camp any further. Because we were hearing stuff that wasn't there. And you know how in large groups of people, like alcohol can create drama,
and you manage to freak yourselves out.
And and then that was happening. Like we were fighting over, like guys were fighting over girls they didn't even like or know the names of. Girls were fighting over guys they didn't even like or know the names of. So we just packed up all our trash meticulously because we were with 2 scouts.
Okay,
and they policed our behavior admirably, lived up to their oath, and then we just with our one designated driver, we just all like carpooled in this van, and just hung out on the couch and played video games for the rest of the night. So and that is probably the last and only time I've ever had Keystone.
Yeah, that's like the anti-classy as fuck. That's like trashy as fuck.
Indeed.
Our new segment, trashy as fuck.
All I need is the Walmart wife beater stained with God knows what.
Yeah,
that would have been complete. But you know what was classy? The games in '96. This is the first year I can say was hard.
Yeah.
Like making this list was hard.
This was the most stacked year so far. I think it's fairly easy to say.
Actually, I lost time sort of agonizing about this one.
Yeah.
Like I had a hard time reordering it. Like I moved items on my list. I had to come up with basically tiebreakers for my top 4.
Yeah.
Like my top 4 games I love so much, I actually had a hard time putting them in order. I had to come up with some arbitrary tiebreakers, which I'll talk about. Like this year was absolutely stacked.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Quick shout out to our honorable mentions though. Tomb Raider was a universal honorable mention for us.
Yep, didn't make either of our top 5s.
Not a very pretty game, kind of a broken game, but a new feeling for action-adventure. Like occupying a 3-dimensional space, 3-dimensional puzzles, 3-dimensional puzzles, and
I think there also were some 3-dimensional puzzles, yeah.
And, 3-dimensional shooting segments and whatnot. This was kind of a new thing. Mm-hmm. And I think it deserves a shout-out for handling that reasonably deftly.
Yeah. By the way, we have our Discord open where we're taking some questions, saying, well, we'll get to that. We'll talk to it when we get to that point on the list. Regardless, we are ranking all of these games based on their original release, even if it was not the year that they released
just too hard to
in
juggle.
our region. Yeah.
Otherwise it's just too hard to juggle.
Yeah. Tomb Raider, I really enjoyed it. They did a very good remake of this semi-recently that I believe is available on Steam with updated graphics that I definitely recommend.
Yeah, which it sorely needed. Like, oh my god, do the original Tomb Raider games not age well?
The triangle tits they
almost
don't hold up
unplayable.
That well. Yeah.
Like, good lord.
Yep.
Another honorable mention game,
Quake, and like the fact that this was your honorable mention, the fact that this didn't even make it onto my honorable mentions made me go, yeah, this was a tough year.
Quake was an amazing game.
It was great. I mean, I think it was the first fully 3D shooter, or at least the first one that
behaved like it too, and your character had some vertical mobility, which he didn't really have in GoldenEye.
Yeah. Yeah, because Doom, it was, essentially cardboard cutouts in a 3D environment. And yeah, Quake was, fully 3D. It had a great multiplayer
I'll put it this
scene.
way, without Quake and Quake 2, we never would have really got to games like Half-Life. So this is the granddaddy, in my opinion, of the modern shooter. In terms of just, everybody's got to take the first plunge in the deep end of the pool, right? And try things. And Quake tried so many things and tried so many of them well that it really, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit with a game like that's shortly down the list for us, it kind of set the rules. Every game had to borrow from some of what this set up going forward, even games out of genre. So, spectacular accomplishment from Quake.
Yeah.
And our last honorable mention that we'll talk about that appears on no other list is Civilization 2.
Yeah, and Civ 2, I've played it probably the least out of any of the Civilization games, which is why it's only an honorable mention. Like I've mentioned, Civ 3 was really my first Civ game, and I've gone back and played the original Civilization just for historical value. Civ 2, I've barely messed with it at all. So the most I could give it is an honorable mention. Again, we have kind of an informal rule that if you did not at least complete a significant part of the game, it should not be on your top 5. So people wondering why Civ 2 is not higher on my list, that is why. It brought some innovations to the series that are still around, so I appreciate that it exists, but it wasn't wasn't a major blip on my gaming radar in 96.
Also, I feel like Civ is one of these games that has this great ability to iterate on itself as they go down the franchise. I feel like every Civ game has been better than the Civ game that came before it.
Yeah.
The gap between Civilization 2 and Civilization 1, I feel, is the smallest of them all. The gap between Civ 3 and Civ 2 is cavernous.
Yeah.
And the gap between Civ 4 and Civ 3, I think, is respectable. And, I mean, the new Civilization 6 is so by far and away the best thus far. So this team has proven incredible at adapting, revising, improving their games as they iterate on themselves in this franchise. I think one of the reasons Civ 2 came off a little underwhelming is I don't feel like it was that much better than Civ 1. I don't feel like it added that much. I don't feel like it improved that much. Whereas Civ 3 was a freaking haymaker to the jaw strategy-wise. Like, oh my god.
I'm sure there are people who will disagree with us. You know, if you were already a fully functioning adult when Civilization 1 came out and then Civilization 2 came out, it probably felt like a bigger step up than it feels like to us going back and comparing them.
That is fair.
Having already played Civ 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, that is fair.
Yeah, but I would agree. From what little impression of it I have, it wasn't that huge of a step up from Civ 1. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about our number 5s real quick.
Yeah.
Because our number 5s are unique and don't show up on each other's lists at all.
Yeah.
And then we can start talking about, the games that we agreed were great, but just kind of disagreed on the order. So my number 5... Broken Sword, The Shadow of the Templars.
This is one of the first games that has appeared on either of our lists that I had never heard of until I started editing the article.
Yeah. Broken Sword is right up there with The Walking Dead Season 1 of Telltale as the greatest adventure game ever put together. It's just a towering, titanic achievement. It tells one of the best stories I've ever played in a game, like one of the best adventure stories about, tracking through conspiracies and hunting lost artifacts and solving these age-old mysteries, all while solving murders.
Yeah.
So just this great, tight story without a lot of holes. Characters that you care about. And it's a feat because at the beginning, they kind of set the characters up as flawed people that you don't think you're going to care about. In fact, through like the first half of the first act of the story, you're not unconvinced, you're not annoyed by them. But the way they grow on you and kind of get under your skin to the point where I was eager to play the sequels, I view as just a towering achievement. That's hard to do in any storytelling in a game. Like, make me fall in love with the people I'm following through this story. Not every game does it. Not even, I would say, 80% of games do it. So you've got to give it up. Also, gorgeous for 1996.
Yeah.
Fully animated, well animated, detailed, intricate, bright colors. It looks like there was some ink and pen going on in the conceptual stage. It's like a graphic novel come to life, and I loved that. So good looking. You can go back and play the remaster today, where really all they do is just increase your resolution and stuff, and it holds up. It's beautiful.
Is this on GOG?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so if you play The Dig, I will play this, and we should have a show about each other's favorite adventure games of the 90s that the other person didn't play.
Put it on the list, man.
Yeah.
Put it on the Talk Shop concept list. I would love to do that. I think that'd be fun. Because that's true. I did not play The Dig.
Yeah, definitely. By
the
way, also, we have some... Actually, I think we had maybe one last week too, but we do have some multi-platform games at this point in time, and we are rewarding points to both or all platforms in which they are initially released on. If it got a port like a year and a half,
we're not giving 5-10
years later, that doesn't count. But if it released on multiple platforms within a short window of time,
we're giving it to all of them.
We'll give it to all of them.
So sort of like 60-70% my method, 30-40% yours. We compromised.
Yeah, and I know there's going to be people that will be like, why didn't you give Macintosh all the points and Linux for all these PC games on here already? I don't think Mac and Linux are going to be contenders overall, so generally if it's a PC game that also released on other PC-like devices, I'm just giving points
Also, the
to
history
PC.
of early 90s and early 2000s Mac and Linux ports is winding and in some cases difficult to research.
I mean, the only one I can think of that came out on Mac that never came out on PC that would potentially earn points on my list is Marathon, and that's about it. Like, all the other ones released on PC.
And not to mention, a lot of the Mac and Linux ports, like I said, they came out later, and it's actually sometimes a little difficult to track when. Yeah. So it's we're ignoring that particular...
Mac and Linux are not going to be in the running for our best platform list.
No. And... here's the thing. Mac and Linux and their developers never intended them to be. It's not a gaming platform.
I mean, Mac at one point was trying to support games, but they pretty clearly have made the statement within the last 10 to 15 years that they don't really give a shit.
No, it's not what they're after.
Like, if you want to play games, just get yourself Boot Camp and install Windows on your Mac, basically.
Yup.
So... I do appreciate developers that support Mac and Linux in addition to PC.
For example, Obsidian's Tyranny and Pillars of Eternity ports to Mac are wonderful.
Yeah, most of the Paradox games also come out on Mac and Linux, but it's not... they're not going to be in contention, so we're not even really bothering to keep track.
We're not going to do the work.
I mean, they'd probably... I mean, Macintosh would probably end up with about as many points as Amiga, but I don't think Amiga is long for this world in terms of being on the top 10, so...
Nope.
Yeah.
Alrighty, man. Talk about Command & Conquer Red Alert.
Yeah, so Command & Conquer Red Alert was... It was the biggest way that I feel like it was a step up from the original Command & Conquer is it was starting to move towards a world where RTSs were not a huge pain in the ass to control.
Yes.
If you come right down to it, Command & Conquer, Warcraft 1, even Warcraft 2 were kind of a pain in the ass on the interface front. Just limited unit selection. Red Alert, I believe, was the first game to introduce control groups, which was a huge deal. It was just much easier to work with, and it kind of set a precedent for how RTSs would control going forward with games like StarCraft, which we're going to be probably talking about soon, as you may have guessed. And I also just loved the absurdity of it. Like, Command & Conquer took itself a little bit seriously. Red Alert did not take itself seriously, and I love that. It had these tongue-in-cheek, full-motion videos with freaking Stalin and, like, Einstein traveling back in time to kill Hitler. And I love the Red Alert universe. It's such, like, a tongue-in-cheek send-up of the, Cold War 20th century.
Yeah, it's the developers are not even really hiding their blatant satirical bent, I feel like.
And like it seems like it's taking itself seriously, but I think you could tell that it really wasn't. Like it was very tongue in cheek, and I just thought it was hilarious and amazing. And we might have to see if we can link to some cutscenes from Red Alert in the description, so you can see what I'm talking about if you haven't experienced the greatness that is Command & Conquer Red Alert's full motion video cutscenes.
They're pretty incredible.
They're pretty great.
I'll give you that.
And the campaign was really good too. This was back in the days of big, meaty RTS campaigns with multiple endings. And
it plays robustly. Like I feel like it's a good RTS too.
Yeah, well, it carried forward the tradition of the original Command & Conquer, and there were a shitload of units and a shitload of different strategies, but somehow managed to be pretty balanced between the two asymmetrical factions.
Yep.
They both felt very different to play.
I mean, StarCraft will always carry the banner of masterful balance.
Yeah.
But the Command & Conquer games did not do an awful job.
Well, and Command & Conquer, I think, did as good a job of balancing two factions as Blizzard did at balancing three. It's just that Blizzard...
That third faction...
It was more of an accomplishment, because you have to balance three different matchups against each other instead of two. So,
yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, Red Alert, great game.
Those were our number 5s.
Yeah.
Starting at number 4, we have games that made our top lists and made the others honorable mentions. So we're in complete agreement as to the historical, like, legendary qualities of these games. Yeah. My number 4, and I can already see the controversy here. Yeah. Super Mario 64 at number 4. Almost every list I read of other people's, this is number 1, at worst number 2.
Yeah.
So I know it's a little blasphemous to say that Super Mario 64 was not a top 2 game of 96. I'm going to tell you why. It's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Like, this game set the rule of maneuvering in 3D space. its camera we make fun of in hindsight because it was janky and shitty, but it was the first three-dimensional camera a player could control in a platforming space. And every camera that has come after, every single one, iterated on these principles.
Yeah.
I mean, Ocarina of Time fixed it. Like, what was broken about it's the same camera. But what was broken about 64 Ocarina of Time fixed, and Ocarina of Time's camera is actually one of its legendary accomplishments. It's literally the example of an immaculate camera in a 3D game. But Super Mario 64 is the prototype for the three-dimensional camera.
And they were doing this with a single thumbstick. The N64 didn't have the dual stick where you could control one camera with a stick while moving with the other one like you can today. It's a fantastic game. I mean,
it is. I found it here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
I found it had some amazing levels. Had some amazing elements. And it did what it wanted to do really well. A 3D platformer. The first one.
Yeah.
And it was a good one. However, it came out early in 64. It came out early in 96. And I feel like a game that came down later on this list and my game of 1996 did kind of everything Super Mario 64 did, but better.
Yeah.
So it's like it was groundbreaking, prototypical, outstanding, and then was very rapidly surpassed in like the 2 years following its historical release. And that was a couple of tiebreaks that went against Super Mario 64 in my book.
Really, what it comes down to me is I don't know that I would justify having it as an honorable mention instead of having it on my top 5 by tearing it down. I would justify it simply by saying it's a really great game, but it doesn't quite break through that barrier for me of being one of the best games of all time. Like, it just doesn't. It belongs in the category of great games. It doesn't belong in the category of greatest games.
And don't get me wrong. This is not the end of Mario's dominance on the great game list. Super Mario Galaxies and Galaxies 2 even more so. Spoiler alert. Oh my God, brilliant. Like those games are masterpieces.
And I also happen to be in the camp that is actually growing in its vocal outspokenness lately that thinks Super Mario Sunshine was actually a really underrated game.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
That's a top 3 Mario title,
I think that was another case where it wasn't Super Mario 64, and as the follow-up to Super Mario 64, it kind of got shit on, the same way Majora's Mask did for not being Ocarina of Time.
But when we can actually look at it with some separation, we see that it's a masterful title.
Yeah.
And Super Mario 64 was a masterful title, too. I remember it blowing my mind. I remember recognizing, even at the time, what it made possible. Like, I got a sense of the history when it came out.
And a lot of what I love about it is just how sprawling and epic it is. Like, there's so many levels, and they're all so different that you never really got bored. Like, you got done with one world and you were on to something completely different. And it's such a gigantic, sweeping journey through all of these different environments that all have a different look and feel to them. They all have different obstacles. They even have different pacing. Like the Boo House was completely different in its pace than the Bomb Mountain where you start out.
Well, and look at how inspirational like it was. Like you can see so much. You can see so much inspiration in other platformers that stems from this title. Yeah. Like Banjo-Kazooie might as well be like the direct descendant of Super Mario 64 in my opinion. Yeah. So another thing we want to address is because our Discord is asking us, what about Super Mario RPG? I thought it was mediocre, bluntly.
Well, here's the thing. I never played the original Super Mario RPG. I played Paper Mario, which was a pseudo remake of Mario RPG, which I loved and will almost definitely be on my
Paper
list.
Mario is great. I've seen the port of the original Super Mario RPG. I've messed with it a little bit. I found it in its original form to be bluntly mediocre. Paper Mario is great. It fixed so much of what was wrong.
No, I love Paper Mario. Yeah. Yeah, so my number 4, which was on your honorable mentions. Again, the fact that this is number 4 is proving how tough of a year this was.
Yeah, and this game fought broken sword, tongue and like tooth and nail and tongue for number 5. Like this is the closest border between honorable mention and number 5 I've had since we started this project.
Yeah.
Great game. I'm just saying.
Diablo.
The original
Diablo. So, do you remember our friend Steven?
I do.
From grade school.
How could we forget?
His uncle, who was in the Navy, actually introduced me to this game. Because, again, I could only play these types of games when I was over at a friend's house. My parents didn't know I was playing them. But I remember that day so distinctly because he got me so worked up and terrified of the butcher that when I finally got to the butcher and you finally get that, like, fresh meat, like, I just wanted to, like, run back to town and not ever have anything to do with this before. And the game aids that as well, because you're talking to all these townspeople and they're saying how terrifying, the cathedral, the horrors under the cathedral are, and, this demon, the butcher. It was so foreboding and atmospheric. I also remember that I spent like 10 minutes on character creation because he kept telling me that my character's name was not badass enough. He's like, no, dude, like, this is a serious game. You need to come up with like a really hardcore badass name. And I think the name he eventually suggested for me was TJ is God with a Z. That was his idea of like a really hardcore,
that is so 90s,
badass name.
So 90s
that
gamer.
Was appropriate for Diablo, I guess, because I'm God and I'm going to kill all the demons or something. And
see, my experience with Diablo 1 is actually hilarious, and it proof of concept that certain spheres of Generation Y and the baby boomers have not yet understood video games or how they were rated as of 1996, 97. I forget if it was in a laser tag like game lobby or if it was do you remember the Discovery Zone? But for a very brief period of time, Diablo was, I forget which one of those two it was. But Diablo was on one of their computers.
On one of their like LAN PCs.
Being played by like 9-year-old kids and like a play sort of atmosphere.
Which, I mean, the funny thing is, aside from the cutscenes, which are pretty gory, if you go back today,
it's not that intense.
Yeah, like the graphics are so pixelated and silly looking by today's standards that I don't know that it would really scar a kid who grew up.
I just found that hilarious, and I remember
it
did not last long. Like before a parental complaint, I'm sure.
Yeah,
had that uninstalled, but that was my first experience with it. Well, and it's a great top-down RPG.
I actually think it's a horror game. I would fully make the argument that it's a horror game.
Diablo, I would agree.
Diablo 2 moved more towards action, but I think the first Diablo was actually a horror game.
Just because your character remains so outmatched through the bulk of the adventure.
And it's going through the levels of this, creepy dungeon and discovering greater and greater evils the further down you go, and it was just it was a great way to unfold this story and keep you kind of on the edge of your seat about what's next. Like, if I go deeper, what's the next thing I'm going to run into?
And you never... I loved... One of the things I loved in Diablo 1 is that I never felt strong.
Yeah.
Like, ever. I got stronger, and I got better gear, but I never felt strong.
Yeah.
It's Dark Souls that way. What Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3 in particular did a masterful job of.
Dark Souls, I think, is probably the most direct successor to Diablo 1 out there.
I would agree.
If I really think about it, I think that Dark Souls is more of a successor to Diablo 1 than Diablo 3 or really any of the Diablo clones that have come out since then. I mean, you can look at Torchlight, you can look at Path of Exile. I think Dark Souls is the continuation, the most direct continuation of that.
Yep. It's because of that oppressive atmosphere.
Yeah.
Just a person with weapons getting stronger however they can against this unrelenting tide of evil. It's just cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So we agreed on number 3.
And on number 2, actually.
Yep.
But yeah.
Pokemon Red and Blue.
Yep.
Number 3.
And we are going based on the original Japanese release. I know it didn't come out in the US until 98, but we are going based on when the game was initially available for what year it actually falls into. Because, I mean, one of the main reasons that makes sense to do is because we're comparing it to other games that are on the same technical level.
Yes.
Not saying Pokemon Red and Blue wouldn't have still made the list in 98. I'm pretty sure they would have. But they're going up against games that had 2 years of technological progress over them.
Mm-hmm.
At that point.
And it stands out.
Yeah.
It's notable. But Pokemon Red and Blue. I rank character creation in Pokemon Red and Blue as one of my top 20 gaming moments. Just like goosebumps. Like I'm about to go on an adventure with this pet who fights things, which is so like a little boy came up with this idea. It's so awesome. And Pokemon embraces all that with such a wide-eyed, almost innocence. We're gonna ignore what's problematic about this concept and just go whole hog into what's amazing and joyful about it. And I think that's what made this franchise special. I think that's what made it become a worldwide phenomenon. Is it just embraced what it was so earnestly, so openly, and so enthusiastically that it almost couldn't help becoming iconic.
Yeah, and it made you like this powerful person in this world that was it was framed by these systems. Like, you had the Pokemon League and you had the different gyms and you were working your way through this
very tiered.
Yeah, like these levels of competition, and it made you feel like some of the really good sports career games, I think, make you feel like you're working your way up through this hierarchy, through these systems, and you're traveling to all these different towns, and you've got this kind of I'm not sure whether to call it a B plot, because in a lot, even especially in some of the more recent Pokemon, it's more of an A plot, but this kind of almost life or death side thing going on with Team Rocket and uncovering what was going on with them. And it was such an entertaining world to get lost in.
And you got so attached to your team.
Yeah.
I still remember what my core 6 were.
Oh, yeah.
And how I used them and what their abilities were. And you got so attached to them. Mm-hmm. My Charizard, Articuno, Hypno, Cloyster, Gyarados, and I can't actually remember its name. Wow. The final evolution of Oddish.
Vileplume.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Charizard and Articuno as well, so we agreed on that one. I also had Arcanine. I always loved Arcanine. And then I think I had an Onix, and I'm trying to remember what my other two were. The other two spots might have switched a little bit. I had a Pidgeot that was like the Pidgey that I caught at the beginning of the game.
Which is cool.
Took me all the way through the Elite Four. Yeah.
So many people, that first Pidgey became such an
Aerodactyl was my other one.
Yeah, it became such an integral part of their team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you look at Twitch Plays Pokemon. Their Pidgeot became the only elite Pokemon they had to get them through the Elite Four and, Bird Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it was such a, there were so many options, like how to build your team, what moves to set them up with, thinking about the big rock, paper, scissors web of what types do I need to bring to which fights was super interesting. And there were, rare ones that were really hard to catch, some of them.
And then the game also knew when to just veer into badass territory.
Yeah.
If you could get a Charizard high enough level,
it
really didn't matter when it came up against a Blastoise. It was just run and train on people anyway because its special attack was so high.
Yep, exactly. And just the element of comparing your team with friends and trading. We had those big parties where we were trying to figure out how to get the fucking Game Boy Link cable to work.
Yeah.
Because those things,
were
did not work half the time.
Yeah, truly, truly awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a seminal moment, I feel like, in both of our gaming careers. This was the game that I would, hide my Game Boy under my pillow so that I could get it back out and play after my parents thought I had already gone to bed, which required the actual use of a flashlight because we didn't have backlit screens.
Well, and
until they came out with those magnifier things that would stick onto the Game Boy.
I would have to plan those little late night Pokemon excursions in advance because I would need to. One day I would need to sneak a spare pair of batteries up to my nightstand, and then the other night do the Game Boy because it was very, very difficult to play Pokemon for longer than 3 or 4 hours at a time these days.
Well, this was like by the time Pokemon came out, I was playing. I think we were both playing on Game Boy Colors, which were the ones that used AAAs instead of AAs, and also used more battery.
Yes,
because they had color screens, so those things died like super quick. Like,
so quick.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, my dad used to become just infuriated at how he was. It got to the point where he luckily he broke because he's a good and loving father. He would just start buying AAA batteries in like Costco bulk, and just being like, half of these are yours. I understand they are, but please keep it within reason.
If you don't get stuck in Mount Moon or Rock Tunnel for too long, one set of AAAs can get you through Misty, but that's about it from starting a new game. Yeah,
pretty crazy.
Yeah, yep. So, yeah, those were foundational games. Definitely.
I loved them. They have so many great memories to me. I'll never forget winning the Pokemon League at the end.
Yeah.
How cool it felt. I also, just as a statement of who I am and what my history is in gaming and where I come from, I printed that certificate from a Game Boy printer that you caught all 150 because I did. Yeah. And I kept that in my wallet through college. Like, I got rid of it a little while ago just because that piece of paper was getting janky. Yeah. Like, it was not... It's not looking good.
I never actually caught all 150 in the original Pokemon Red. I think I had like 106 or 116.
Never forget, man, my journey to catch a Kangaskhan lasted like 7 days because that was number 150 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard. The Safari Zone over and over and over again.
Some of the ones I never had were the ones you could only get from trading. Like, they would only evolve if you traded them.
Yeah, Golem.
Yeah, because,
Golem and Gengar.
Again, because we can never get the stupid freaking link cable to work. So, yeah. That's Pokemon.
Yep. Number 2, which we also agreed on, man. Resident Evil.
Oh, man.
Resident Evil.
I love the original Resident Evil. This was almost my number 1, and then I thought to myself,
same.
Are you crazy?
It competed.
And then,
ultimately, I couldn't put it there because... Okay, let's be real. The gameplay and the puzzles are still flawed, but this is one of those games that it rises above the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Solely because I have a hard time. Casey agrees, evidently.
Yeah, Casey.
So I have a hard time picturing a game that nails atmosphere better. Like, this game decided what it wanted to be, the first survival horror game.
Yeah.
And then it was so good at being that game that it created and defined its own genre. And that is an incredible accomplishment.
I think it was the first game I ever played where you actually had to skip some enemies because there were not enough bullets in the entire mansion
to defeat them.
To kill everything. Mm-hmm. It was fantastic at creating that horror atmosphere. It had so many layers to peel back. I feel like, you start out in the vestibule of this spooky mansion, but by the end you're dodging mutant sharks in an underground laboratory. Like, that whole element of it was so cool. Of like, oh, I unlocked this next door. Like, what's next?
This was the only Resident Evil game to have some freaking mystery to it. Yeah. Which turned what is a fairly linear and straightforward plot. I actually feel the plots are kind of the biggest weakness of Resident Evil games. They tend to lean a little too far towards cheesy and simple. But just that layer of mystery, that layer of what the hell is going on, did so much for the original Resident Evil to elevate what is on paper kind of a meh plot into something sinister and engaging and truly creepy.
Yeah.
Like, this game got my goat a few times, and not in the jump scare way, even though there were a couple of those, but in just the general, like, I'm frightened. Like, I don't like what's going on. I'm uncomfortable. I'm sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that next door. I'm safe in this room. Why would I want to go to the other room?
And it subverted that. Like, there is the part later on in the game where the door, one of those doors that has been a barrier of safety, like, if I get through this door, the thing in the hallway can't kill me, and you're walking around, the hunter fucking knocks it down. These two areas that have been separate areas with a loading screen for the entire rest of the game are now one area, and he's coming to kill you. Like,
and you panic.
I love that.
I love that moment because
Yeah.
I panicked.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, shit.
It's like, yeah, because they take the rules of video games as you understand them and then just throw them in the trash.
Just bend them.
Yeah.
What a brilliant experience. And it invented its own genre.
Yeah.
It really did.
And
There wasn't really anything like Resident Evil before Resident Evil. There wasn't.
This game holds up with an asterisk. If you can play the remake, the more recent one, it originally came out for GameCube, but I think it's out for a variety of systems now. The modern remake of Resident Evil, where they redid the graphics and they redid all of the horrible voice acting, that is one of the reasons I can't put this at number one on my list.
And they fixed some of the truly broken puzzles and made them a little bit more intuitive.
They fixed some broken stuff. They actually made the game harder in some ways, with like the zombies that can come back to life as a more dangerous zombie. Definitely play that if you have the opportunity. I would not recommend going back and playing the original PlayStation version.
It hasn't aged well.
But play the remake. It is still good to this day.
They aged the remake well. They aged it wonderfully. They updated what needed to be updated. They left alone what needed to be left alone, and it's still a great game.
Yeah.
That's Resident Evil, man.
So many great moments in that. Like when you first get the Magnum in Resident Evil, you feel like such a badass.
And then you realize
there's only like 6 bullets for it.
And then you realize it's incredibly difficult to find more.
Yeah.
Like, I think there are less than 100 Magnum bullets in the entire game.
Oh, way less. I think there's less than 30 Magnum bullets in the entire game. But yeah. Yeah, great game, great bosses.
I'll never forget when I learned that I couldn't save ad infinitum, that I needed ink ribbons.
Yeah, you had a finite number of save games. I forgot about that.
You need ink ribbons, son. Like, oh my god.
Being able to save your progress was a resource.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, our number ones, I feel like, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. Not only did our number ones not show up on the other person's top 5, our number ones didn't even show up on the other person's list. This is the first time this has ever happened. Not even as an honorable
mention.
Yeah. And I predict this might be the last time this happens. It might be,
yeah. Well, I never owned a PlayStation, is part of why.
Fair.
Yeah. So my number one was Master of Orion 2, which I think is still to this day one of the best empire building strategy games that has ever been released, period.
People are just releasing clones of it, honestly, at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like people reskin MO2 and
almost,
ship it as...
almost all of the with the exception of like Stellaris and to some degree maybe Galactic Civilizations and Endless Space, pretty much all of this like renaissance that's happened in the last few years of space 4X games have started with Master of Orion 2, I think, as a baseline to build from. It had complex modeling of your population and your planets. It had, full-on space battles. You could create your own alien race and give it all the traits you wanted and just explore this huge galaxy. I still remember, because I was visiting relatives out of state when I first played this game, and it just happened to be sitting on my cousin's computer table, and I was bored, and I was like, I'm going to give this a go. And I still remember small sensory details of that day, like what the weather was like and what I ate, because Master of Orion 2, the first time I played it, left such an impression on me that it was one of those moments where I realized, I can't go back now that I've had this experience. Like, to some degree, I felt like video games are never going to get better than this, are they? Like, it was that good. It was that much of a step forward from all of the strategy games I'd played in the past.
And so many strategy games we love would not be here without it.
I think it's probably the first game I played that I could describe as a grand strategy game, which has become my favorite genre today. I mean, I have thousands of hours in Crusader Kings and EU4 and getting up there in Hearts of Iron, and Master of Orion, I think, was one of the first strategy games I played that had the amount of depth where I could call it grand strategy. There was so much flavor, so much to discover. The alien races were really cool and memorable. I can't say enough good about this game. When I was thinking about putting Resident Evil as my number 1 for this year, I was like, dude, come on. Like, are you serious? Yeah, Master of Orion 2 was just such a freaking incredible game that when I really thought about it, there's really no competition. There's actually a pretty wide gulf between my number 1 and the rest of my list this year.
Righteous.
Yeah.
My number 1, Crash Bandicoot. And I can keep this pretty simple. Yeah. It's the perfect old school platformer.
Yeah.
The perfect old school platformer. It's pretty. It's well designed.
Yeah.
The gameplay is tighter than a Rubik's Cube. I mean, just in terms of how it flows.
I've actually never played it.
It has variety that works within it, like different sorts of stages, different types of activities, and those are all amazing. Charming cast of characters. It's just eminently playable. Like, I know this is a controversial number 1 pick, but this game is so fun and so mindlessly fun. Like, you can just pick it up and enjoy the shit out of it. You just can. When they did that remake this year, that was a day 1 purchase for me, just because I was so eager to get my hands on it again. And the hours just disappear at the helm of these controls. No platformer did this well until Rayman Origins. Like, just the flawless, tight gameplay that time disappears when you're playing it. And difficulty becomes less something of an annoying obstacle than a actual component in the gameplay experience. So very few games do that well. And Crash Bandicoot does it all masterfully. And that slice of perfection was ultimately what broke the tie between it and Resident Evil for me. Is Resident Evil had things it could have gotten better in. And in other games in its series, it got better in those things, even if it regressed in other areas. I mean, you could even argue that Resident Evil 4 is everything wrong with Resident Evil fixed immaculately and everything right about Resident Evil removed. Like, they're almost mirror images of each other in that way. Crash Bandicoot, it almost has no peers. I mean, Rayman Legends, Jak 2, almost no peers. It is a perfect to near perfect home run platformer game, and I've got to salute Naughty Dog, because this kind of has become, and I think starting with this title became, what they're known for.
Yeah.
Just making amazing titles that kind of redefine excellence in the genre the game belongs to.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about their slate, the Uncharted games, Last of Us, Crash Bandicoot, and the titles in that series, it is like, good God, guys.
Yeah.
Like, is there a better studio at cranking out masterpieces right now? Rockstar, arguably? Like, the Grand Theft Auto 5 was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I'd say San Andreas and 5 would rank a lot higher than 4 for me. But yeah,
I'm just what studio out there to this day is a mint in terms of gold medals from critics?
Yeah, I mean, critical reception would take it in a different direction. I would still to this day say that, with the exception of Dragon Age 2, maybe BioWare, but I liked Mass Effect Andromeda a lot more than most people did, so...
I don't even say most people, man. It has an overall favorable rating on it.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Then people in the gamer zeitgeist, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, they've put out consistently great stuff for such a long time that I think they're going to end in a fairly high position on our overall.
They don't make games often. Like, it's not like they're making 2 titles a year. It's just that everything they make is so flippin' good.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
See, I love the Jak and Daxter series. I have never touched a Crash Bandicoot game. Meaning, in the sense that my hand has never been on a controller when one of those games was in the system. Like, I have zero experience with them, period.
See, I think we'll have to change that.
Yeah.
They're fun.
Yeah, well,
they're fun.
If we have the remakes available, I'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, they're fun.
The fact that this would score above Pokemon and above Resident Evil and above Mario 64 for you tells me that it's probably worth giving it a go.
It's the perfect platformer.
Yeah.
For the technology that was available at the time, it's the perfect platformer. And that's how I feel about that.
Yeah. So our Best Games Olympics, which is where we award points to platforms, studios, and countries based on where each game ranks on our list.
PlayStation begins to charge.
Yeah, PlayStation has begun its upward charge. They appear on my list for the first time this week at number 7. They've jumped from number 8 to number 4 on your list, and from number 8 to number 6 on the combined list. We're starting to see some gridlock at the top with PC, SNES, and NES. Just because as the list goes on, it's harder to chip into the lead of the people who have been in the lead for a long time.
Although the NES and the SNES are under siege. Like, very much under siege.
Yeah, I could see them getting surpassed. Console cycles are going to start to get shorter. So I'd say that if they are going to get surpassed, it's going to need to happen soon. Yeah, we also have the N64 peeking its head above water this year at number 9. It's probably going to soar a lot higher than that.
Yeah,
in the coming
it will
coming
have
years.
To. 1997 and 1998 were the heyday of that console.
Oh yeah, yeah. Genesis and arcade are on the way down. Some of the older systems like the Apple II are getting pushed off the list. Game Boys remained relatively static. They went down one spot because PlayStation jumped over them. I kind of thought Game Boy would be in a higher spot by 96, but I guess it's just really that other than Pokemon and Zelda, there wasn't really anything that was game-changing.
That was truly remarkable.
Either of us.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Developer-wise, again, we're seeing some deadlock at the top. Nintendo, Square, and LucasArts have it pretty well locked up. At this point in time, Capcom has jumped back into the number 4 spot thanks to Resident Evil, and actually Westwood and Microprose have re-emerged onto the list because of Command & Conquer and Master of Orion. They were brought back from having not appeared on the top 10 for ages. Blizzard actually did not move up this year because
Diablo didn't score as well as one might have predicted either.
Diablo was made by Blizzard North, which is a separate studio. They're a different entity from the guys that made Warcraft and StarCraft. So they have their own score, but they're not on the top 10. And we're not combining like Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft France are different studios, so they will earn different points, obviously. Yep. Same with BioWare Austin versus, BioWare Edmonton. Those are different studios.
Different people.
Yep.
Even to a degree, different leadership.
Yep. In the Nation Wars, UK has reclaimed the bronze medal spot from France, thanks to Tomb Raider and Shadow of the Templars, which were both UK-based games. So they're back in the number 3 spot. We also have probably the thinnest margin between the top 2 we've ever had. Between the US and Japan, it's less than 10 points. US is still barely clinging to number 1. But yeah, that's the statistical breakdown for 1996. Didn't see nearly as much movement as we did last week.
As we're used to. Nope.
Yeah. Again, because some of these juggernauts are just getting so entrenched.
Here's the thing, though. I think 1997 has a few bombs to drop on the studio front, on the console front. 97, 98 are going to be fun years.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Look forward to them, folks. They'll be going live soon. Thank you for being understanding of our break. It was a busy couple of weeks with Denver Comic-Con and stuff. That just took way more attention, especially given that one of us worked it. It took a lot of attention.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're back now, and we're kind of ready to go after it. So, good stuff.
Yep, we'll be back next week with the best games of 1997.
Catch us then.
Loresworn.com, written version. Follow at Loresworn Order on Twitter.
And watch Kaiserreich, the New American Century, which has become kind of it's become the biggest smash hit we've ever produced.
Yeah.
So get on board that train, y'all. Watch it, and if you like it, like it. And if you like it a lot, subscribe and see more of our content.
Oh, yeah. Till next time, guys.